I was on a video call from a plywood hut 8,000 miles from home, watching my own living room on a laptop screen, when I saw a pair of men's boots by my front door that were not mine. It was the middle of the night where I was, and supper time back home, and I had waited 2 days in line for that connection, just to see my kids' faces and hear my wife's voice. The picture was bad, the way it always was, freezing and stuttering. But behind my wife, by the door we always kept our own boots by, there was a pair of work boots, big ones, set down easy the way a man sets his boots down in a house he feels comfortable in. And my wife saw me looking, and she moved, just a little, to put herself between the camera and that door. And the call froze, and then it dropped, the way they always did, and I sat in that plywood hut in the dark, with my heart going like I was back outside the wire, because I had just seen something I could not unsee. I did not lose it. I want you to understand that, because losing it, downrange, 8,000 miles from any of it, with a weapon in arm's reach and 16 years of a career on the line, is how a soldier throws away everything in one night and gives the people who wronged him the gift of his own ruin. We had a saying out there, it is never the front gate that gets you. The front gate is guarded, watched, expected. What gets you is the gap in the wire, the one spot on the perimeter you quit checking because nothing ever came through it, until the night something does. I had been so busy guarding the front gate, the enemy out there in the dark, that I had stopped checking the wire at home. Those boots by my door were the gap in the wire, and I was 8,000 miles away, with nothing I could do about it but keep my head and start to think. Stay with me. Because what I did over the next several months, from a war zone and then from home, instead of what every instinct in me screamed to do, is the whole reason I am telling you this. While I was downrange, a man who stayed behind was in my house, with my wife, around my kids. And when it came time to end it, she tried to use the very fact that I was serving my country against me, to take my kids and half of a career she never carried a rucksack for. This is not a story about revenge. I kept my honor, I kept my discipline, and I let the law and the truth do the work that rage would have ruined. I am 37 years old. I am a staff sergeant in the United States Army, 16 years in infantry, the kind of work that sends a man away from his family for a year at a time to places you see on the news. I was married for 14 years, 2 kids, a boy who is 10 and a girl who is 6, and they are the reason I get up in the morning, here and there and everywhere. If you are out there tonight, and you ever served, or you ever waited at home for somebody who did, or you ever got handed a Dear John while you were doing the hardest thing you have ever done, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. There are more of us in that particular foxhole than the world likes to admit. Let me tell you about the trust first, because a soldier's trust is a particular kind, and when it breaks particular. I married Megan when I was 23. She was an army wife from the start, which is its own kind of service that nobody pins a medal on. She knew what she was signing up for. The moves, the deployments, the holidays I would miss, the nights she would be alone in a strange town near a post far from her people. And for a lot of years she carried it, and I loved her for it, because a soldier cannot do what he does without somebody holding the home behind him. Every time I deployed, I told myself the same thing every soldier tells himself, that I was doing it for them, for the roof and the future and the country my kids would grow up in. I told myself the year away was love, and maybe it was, on my end. But love that is always leaving is a hard thing to live on. And I know now that 14 years of me walking out the door with a rucksack, even for the best reasons in the world, thinned something between us that I was too far away and too proud to see thinning. I want the civilians watching to understand what an army marriage actually asks, because it is a thing most people never see. It is moving your whole life every 2 or 3 years to a new post in a new state where your wife has to start over, no friends, no family, while you disappear to the field for weeks at a stretch. It is missing the birth of your daughter by 2 days because you were in a training rotation they would not pull you out of. It is 14 Christmases and only half of them home. It is your wife raising the kids alone for a year at a time, learning to be both parents, and then having to hand half of that back when you come home a stranger who flinches at loud noises and cannot sleep in a soft bed. I am not making excuses for what Megan did. I am telling you the weight she carried, because it is real, and because a man who wants the truth has to tell the part that does not flatter him too. I asked an enormous amount of her for 14 years. That does not give her the right to do what she did, but it is the soil it grew in, and I will not pretend the soil was not there. Here is the part I have to own, because I will not tell this if I cannot be straight. By this last deployment, Megan and I were not close the way we had been. The calls home had gotten shorter and flatter. She had stopped sending the long letters, and I had let it ride, the way a man does when he is focused on staying alive and keeping his soldiers alive, and there is no room in a war for working on a marriage. I told myself we would fix it when I got home, the way I always told myself. I'd been telling myself that for 14 years. A man can guard a whole country and leave his own house unguarded. And I did. And I've had to make my peace with my part in that, even as I will never make peace with what was done with the opening I left. Let me tell you how the wire had been getting cut. The signs I read as nothing. The shorter calls, the flatter voice, the way she stopped wanting to talk about home, the kids' school, the ordinary things, and got vague when I asked what she did with her evenings. A name that started coming up from my kids more than from her: Tyler, Mr. Tyler, Uncle Tyler, who fixed the sink, who took them to the lake, who came to dinner. And I knew a Tyler. That was the gut punch. Tyler was a soldier from my own unit, rear detachment, the men who stay behind on a deployment to handle things at home, to look after the families, to be the ones the wives can call when the water heater breaks, and her husband is in a country she cannot find on a map. Tyler was supposed to be looking after my family. He was looking after my family, all right? I just had the wrong idea of how. I told myself it was nothing. A good rear D soldier helps the families. That is the job. That is the honorable version of it. And I made myself believe that was all it was. Because the other version was a thing I could not afford to think about with 8 months left on a deployment, and men depending on me to keep my head. So I read the boots by the door as nothing too, for about a day. And then a buddy of mine, a good man, a sergeant I trusted with my life and had, took me aside in the chow line and told me, quiet, soldier to soldier, that people back home were talking, that he was sorry, that I deserved to hear it from a friend and not a rumor. He did not have to say the name. I already knew it was Tyler. Once I let myself see it, the other signs all fell into line, the way targets do when the light finally comes up. The way Megan had stopped sending pictures of the kids and gotten short when I asked for them. The way my 10-year-old, on a call, had mentioned that Mr. Tyler's truck was at the house a lot, and then gone quiet when his mama came in the room. The same quiet my buddies' kids get when they are holding something they do not understand. The way a care package I sent had gone unacknowledged for 3 weeks. The way Megan had quietly taken her name off our joint plans for my homecoming, the leave we were supposed to take, the trip we had talked about for a year, and had reasons for all of it that I had swallowed because swallowing was easier than choking. A soldier learns to read the ground for the signs of an ambush, the disturbed earth, the too quiet village, the thing that is just slightly wrong. I had read that ground my whole career and stayed alive doing it. I had just never once turned that same hard eye on my own home. Because you do not want to believe the ambush is set in the one place you are supposed to be safe. That night, I did not call home and start a war I could not fight from a war. I went out and sat on a stack of sandbags under a sky full of more stars than you ever see back home. And I did the thing the army had spent 16 years teaching me to do under fire. You do not panic. You assess. You take a knee. You get your breathing under control. You figure out exactly what you are dealing with, and exactly what you can and cannot do from where you are, and you make a plan. I could not do one thing about Tyler from 8,000 miles away, and trying would only get me a court-martial and hand him everything. What I could do was protect my kids, protect my career, protect the future I had bled 16 years for, and come home with my honor and my discipline intact, and handle it like a man instead of like a casualty. So that is the mission I gave myself. And the first move was a phone call. I want to tell you what those next 8 months cost, because it is the part nobody sees. I still had a job to do, the most serious job there is, which is to lead soldiers in a dangerous place and bring as many of them home as I could. I could not afford to be somewhere else in my head. A squad leader whose mind is 8,000 miles away in a courtroom gets people killed. So every morning, I locked the whole thing in a box. The boots, Tyler, Megan, all of it. And I did my duty. And I kept my men sharp. And I kept them alive. And only at night, alone on those sandbags, did I let myself take the box back out and look at it. I led patrols with my voice steady and my hands sure, while my whole home life was on fire behind me. That is a kind of discipline they cannot teach you in any school. You either have it when the moment comes, or you do not. And I found out I had it. And I am prouder of those 8 months of holding the line, inside and out, than of any ribbon on my chest. It took some doing from downrange, but I got hold of a lawyer back in the States, one who specialized in military divorce. Because I had heard enough barracks horror stories to know that a military divorce is its own kind of minefield. And you do not walk a minefield without somebody who knows where the mines are. And what that lawyer told me is the most useful thing I can hand you tonight. So write it down, especially if you wear the uniform. Do not do anything rash from downrange. Get quiet, get counsel, and understand the protections you have, because the law gives a deployed service member more cover than most of them ever know. The lawyer was a woman who had handled military divorces around our post in Colorado for almost 30 years, and she had a steadiness that reminded me of the best officers I ever served under. I told her everything. The boots, Tyler, the rear detachment, 16 years in with a pension, 4 years from vesting. And then she told me some things about military divorce that I did not know, and that most soldiers do not know until it is too late. And I am going to share the shape of them. Though I want to be clear, I am no lawyer, and your situation runs its own way, and you need your own counsel for your own life. This is just my story. The first thing she told me put steel back in my spine. She said that because I was deployed, federal law protected me from getting railroaded. She called it the Service Members Civil Relief Act. She said that a court cannot simply divorce me and divide everything and hand my wife whatever she asks while I am downrange and unable to defend myself. She said a deployed soldier can require the court to wait, can get a stay of the proceedings, can force them to appoint counsel before anything is decided against him, that the law does not let a wife use a man's own service as the moment to strike while he cannot strike back. She told me not to abuse it, not to just hide behind it forever, that the smart move was to engage real counsel and participate properly, but that the protection was there, and it meant Megan could not finish this thing behind my back while I was gone. The relief I felt at that was physical. The one thing I had feared most, coming home to find it all already decided in my absence. The law would not allow. Then she told me about the pension, and this was the part that mattered most for the long haul. She said that yes, in a divorce, a military pension can be divided, that the years Megan and I were married while I served counted as marital, and that she would be entitled to a share of that part. I did not begrudge that. 14 years an army wife is real, and the part she carried she earned. But then the lawyer told me the thing that Megan and Tyler had surely not counted on. She said there is a rule, a newer one, that freezes a former spouse's share of the pension at the rank and the years of service a man has on the day of the divorce. She said every promotion I earned after that, every year I served after that, Every bit of rank I made on my own going forward would be mine and mine alone. Not divisible, not hers. Megan could share in the staff sergeant I was. She could not touch the man I had not become yet. The future I would build with my own continued service was not on the table. And there was a payment rule too, the lawyer said, about how a former spouse only gets paid directly out of the system if the marriage and the service overlapped a certain number of years, the details of which she would handle. But the point was clear. The picture Megan was surely carrying of walking off with half of my whole career was not the picture the law was going to paint. The lawyer put it to me in a way that finally made it land, and I will give it to you the same. She said, "Think of your career like a hill you are still climbing. The day you married, you started carrying Megan's claim up that hill with you. And the higher you climbed together, the bigger her share grew. And that is fair. She was climbing too. But the day of the divorce," she said, "is the day she steps off the hill. From that point on, every step higher you take, every promotion, every year, you carry alone. And it is yours alone. She does not get to keep riding up the mountain on your back after she has left the climb. She gets the elevation you reached together, frozen right there, and not 1 foot of the height you gain after she lets go." I sat with that, 8,000 miles from home, and for the first time since I saw those boots, I felt something other than dread, because I understood that the 16 years behind me were partly hers by right, but the rest of the climb, the whole future, was mine. Then the lawyer gave me the rules, the same ones I would give any soldier or anybody else. Do not do anything that ends your career or your freedom. Because a man in a cell or out of a job loses his kids and his pension both. Do not confront Tyler. Do not lay a hand on him, no matter what every fiber of you wants. Because the man who throws the punch hands the other man the high ground. When you get home, do not move out and do not abandon the kids, because your deployment was service, not abandonment, and the law knows the difference if you do not muddy it. Document everything, and keep your service records and your proof somewhere safe, off any computer she can reach. So I finished my deployment, and I did the hardest thing I have ever done, harder than anything outside the wire, which was to keep my head in the game for 8 more months, lead my soldiers, keep them and me alive, and not let what was waiting for me back home cost a single man under my charge. I called home like normal, or close to it. I did not tip my hand. I have led men through ambushes with my voice calm on the radio while everything came apart around us. Nothing took the discipline of calling home and asking my kids about school while I knew Tyler's boots were by my door. And I gathered what I needed, quietly, even from downrange. My lawyer started the groundwork. I got my service records in order, the documentation of my deployments, the proof that I had been serving my country, not abandoning my family. For every day I was gone, I made sure the things that were mine, the pension I had earned, the accounts I could protect, were documented and accounted for. I kept all of it with my lawyer, off any device back home, because some of you need to hear this, even if you never wear a uniform. Keep your proof where the people in your own house cannot reach it. That is not paranoia. That is just securing your perimeter. Here is the part where it nearly went wrong, and every service member watching needs to hear it, because it is a special kind of low. Megan did exactly what my lawyer feared somebody might. While I was still deployed, she filed. She tried to get the thing moving while I was 8,000 miles away and could not stand in a courtroom to defend myself. And her filing reached, the lawyer told me, for the whole pension, the future and all, and for primary custody of my kids. On the argument that I was never home, that I was always deployed, that the children needed stability with the parent who was actually there, which, by her telling, was her and, by implication, Tyler. She tried to turn my 16 years of service into the case against me. The man who was gone defending the country became, in her filing, the absent father who could not be trusted with his own children. And for a stretch of weeks, from a plywood hut on the other side of the world, I lay awake with the particular terror of a soldier who realizes the attack is coming at his home while he is pinned down somewhere he cannot get back from. I could not be there. I could not stand up in that courtroom. I had a rifle and a mission, and 8,000 miles of ocean between me and my own children. And my wife was using every bit of that distance as a weapon. There is no fear downrange like the fear of losing your kids in a courtroom you cannot reach. I want to say this part slowly, for any service member watching who is in it right now, because I needed somebody to say it to me. The cruelest thing about that move is the timing. She did not file when I was home and could fight. She filed when I was deployed precisely because I could not, betting that distance and silence and a default judgment would hand her everything before I ever set foot back in the country. It is the legal version of hitting a man when his hands are tied, and it is more common than anybody wants to admit. And if it is happening to you, I need you to know two things. The first is that it is not a sign of weakness that you are scared. It is a sign that you love your kids, and that fear is just love with nowhere to go. The second, the one that saved me, is that the law saw this coming a long time ago and built you a shield, and its name is the Service Members Civil Relief Act. And you do not have to be a lawyer to reach for it. You just have to know it is there. But the law held, exactly as my lawyer said it would. The Service Members Civil Relief Act stopped the railroad cold. The court could not decide my children's future and my career's future against me while I was deployed and unable to participate. The proceedings were stayed. Counsel stood up for me, and the moment the law forced the thing to wait until I could be present, Megan's whole plan, which depended entirely on my absence, lost its engine. She had been counting on finishing the fight while I could not fight. The law does not let her. That protection, that one federal law, written for soldiers exactly like me, was the difference between coming home to a done deal and coming home to a fair fight. I came home. And I want to tell you what coming home is like in that situation. Because it is not the movies. There was no screaming match. I had a job to do, and the job was my kids. I came home to my post in Colorado, and I did not move out, and I did not raise my voice, and I did not go anywhere near Tyler. Though the whole world expected me to, and a part of me will always want to have. I let the lawyers and the law do it. Because I was home now and could participate, the case became a fair one. And a fair one, with the truth on the table, looks very different from the one Megan tried to win in my absence. I will tell you the truth about the hardest moment of coming home. Because it was not the courtroom. It was the first time I saw Tyler, across the post, in the same uniform I wore, the flag I had bled under on his shoulder, same as mine. Every cell in my body, every bit of 16 years of training in how to end a threat, lit up at once. I could have crossed that parking lot in 10 seconds. And I stood there, and I thought about my two kids. And I thought about everything I would be handing him and Megan if I threw it all away in one swing. My career, my freedom, my custody, my honor. The whole war I was actually winning, gone, traded for 10 seconds of feeling good and a lifetime of regret. And I turned around, and I walked the other way. That walk, away from Tyler, was the hardest tactical decision I ever made, and the best one, and no medal will ever mark it. But I know what it was. It was the moment I refused to let the man who took my home also take my honor. He did not get that. That stayed mine. The pension held, the way the law said. Megan got her fair share of the marital part, the staff sergeant's pension I had earned during our marriage, and not one bit of the rank and the years I have made and will make since. The future I am still building with my own continued service is mine. And the custody, which was the part that mattered more than any pension, came right. Because a deployment is not abandonment, and the law and any decent judge knows that a soldier who was serving his country is not an absent father. He is a father who was where his country sent him. I had a family care plan. I had been a present and loving dad every single day I was home. And I had the records to show a father who video called from war zones to help with homework. My kid's home is with me now as much as it is with her, on a real and fair arrangement. And the story that I was the absent one died the moment I was standing in the room. And Tyler, the man who stayed behind. The army is its own kind of small town, and a thing like that does not stay quiet in a unit. A rear detachment soldier carrying on with a deployed soldier's wife is not just a betrayal. It is a violation of everything the uniform is supposed to mean, and the chain of command does not look kindly on it. And it followed him. His standing in the unit, his reputation, the respect a soldier lives or dies by, all of it took the hit it earned. And the relationship itself, the thing he and Megan blew up 2 families for, did not survive contact with reality either. Because a thing built on betraying a deployed brother does not have honor in its foundation, and things without honor in the foundation come down. I took no joy in any of it. I just watched the truth do, on its own, the work my own hands were forbidden to do, and the work my own hands did not need to do. And Tyler, the man who stayed behind. The army is its own kind of small town, and a thing like that does not stay quiet in a unit. A rear detachment soldier carrying on with a deployed soldier's wife is not just a betrayal. It is a violation of everything the uniform is supposed to mean, and the chain of command does not look kindly on it. And it followed him. His standing in the unit, his reputation, the respect a soldier lives or dies by, all of it took the hit it earned. And the relationship itself, the thing he and Megan blew up 2 families for, did not survive contact with reality either. Because a thing built on betraying a deployed brother does not have honor in its foundation. And things without honor in the foundation come down. I took no joy in any of it. I just watched the truth do on its own, the work my own hands were forbidden to do, and the work my own hands did not need to do. I am not going to give you a scene where Megan came crawling back, because that is not how this one went, and I would not dress it up. What I will tell you is how it actually ended, which was quieter and meant more. I have my kids half the time and fully in my heart. I have my career and my honor and a pension that is still mostly mine to keep building. I have a unit full of men who closed ranks around the deployed soldier and not the one who stayed behind, because soldiers know. And I have my own hard-won peace, the kind you only get by keeping your discipline when every instinct begged you to throw it away. I never said a cruel word about Megan to my kids, and I never will, because she is their mother and the wound is mine to carry, not theirs. But the home that holds them now is one I kept by keeping my head, and that is worth more to me than the satisfaction I gave up. The thing I did not expect, the thing I want to leave the other soldiers with, is how good the quiet got on the other side. The first weekend I had my kids in my own place, just the 3 of us, my boy and my girl. I made them pancakes shaped like nothing in particular, and we watched a movie and nobody had to be brave about anything. And I sat on that couch with one of them under each arm, and I realized that the war I had actually been fighting, the one that mattered more than any deployment, I had won. And I had won it not with my hands, but with my discipline, by refusing every single time to do the thing that would have cost me that exact couch and those exact 2 kids. A man can lose his marriage and not lose his life. My life was always those 2 kids, and the uniform I was proud of, and the man I could still look at in the mirror. Megan took a marriage. She did not get to take any of the rest, because I would not let her. And the not letting was the quietest, hardest, most important fighting I have ever done. Here is what I have left for you. and then I will let you stand down. It is never the front gate that gets you. The front gate is guarded. Because you expect the threat from out there, the obvious enemy, the danger you can see. What gets you is the gap in the wire. The part of your own perimeter you stopped walking because nothing ever came through it. The home you left unguarded because you were so busy guarding everything else. So walk your whole perimeter. Check the wire at home, not with suspicion, but with the same care you give the threats you can see. Because the people closest in are exactly the ones positioned to come through the gap. And if something does come through, if you find the wire cut while you are facing the other way, do not break contact and charge off half-cocked and get yourself killed. Take a knee. Assess. Find out what you can and cannot do. Get the right people in your corner and execute with discipline. You will hold your ground, and you will hold it as a man your kids can still salute. If you wear the uniform, or you love somebody who does, hear me on this last thing. Your service is not a weakness to be used against you, no matter how somebody tries to spin it. The law knows the difference between a man who left and a man who was sent. Being deployed does not make you an absent father, and it does not put your career up for grabs. And there are protections written for you by people who understood exactly this kind of betrayal. Use them. Get counsel. Keep your honor. Keep your discipline. And let the truth and the law fight the battle you are not allowed to fight with your hands. You did the hard duty. Do not let anyone convince you that doing it cost you the right to your own children or the career you bled for. Take care of yourselves out there. Check your wire. And tell me where you are watching from tonight. I read every single one.